Hi everybody and very welcome to yet another Sunday night live stream. I can't believe it's been another week. I hope you're all doing absolutely fantastic wherever you are out there in the world, and I hope you've had a fantastic aviation week behind you. So, as you all know, if you've been here before, the way that this works is that you guys ask the questions, I provide the answers. I start by answering all of the questions here in the super chat. That's the little dollar sign that you have there below your chat. Means that you're donating a little bit of money to the channel and to the work that I'm doing, and in return I am guaranteeing that I'm going to ask you a question. Now, if you use the super chat and it doesn't work for whatever reason, then you can always go into the Mentour Aviation app and you can send me a private email. Just put the super chat as the line, basically the subject line, and then I'll know when I'll answer your question there. So I will do that. I will answer some questions from the Mentour Aviation chat directly, and also from the chat that I see is well populated already. So let's see, there's already some people that's been into the super chat. So let's start off with the Anna. Hi, and thank you. Well, thank you. What would an emergency descent feel like for a passenger? How fast is it? Does it generate G-forces? And does it feel like plummeting? Great question. And I know that question probably comes on the fact that that we've had, at least there was a Ryanair emergency descent fairly recently in over Germany. And the answer to the question is that as a passenger, it will probably feel very dramatic. Okay, it feels dramatic for a number of reasons. Now, the first thing that will happen is that you will feel that the oxygen masks drops. Okay, and that in itself is probably going to make quite a few passengers nervous, because it's something that you've heard about in the emergency briefing, but it's not necessarily something that you thought would ever happen to you. So that's the first thing that will happen. And then there will be an announcement over the PA system from the captain saying emergency descent, emergency descent, emergency descent. Now, anytime a passenger hears the word emergency coming out of the mouth of the captain, it's going to make them very, very nervous indeed. All right. So that's the second thing that will happen. And the reason that I would make that PA is because in the cockpit, while this has been going on, we have gotten the warning of a rapid depressurization. We've done our memory items, which include the first officer trying to fixing the problem, trying to see if he can close the outflow valve, which is the big hole in the back of the aircraft, to try to see if that's the problem, right? So we try to do that. Well, the first thing we do obviously is put our oxygen masks on, but then we try to solve the problem. If that's not working, well, then the captain will become pilot flying, the first officer becomes pilot monitoring, and I will initiate the emergency descent, which is basically just turning down the altitude on the autopilot, bringing up the speed, closing the thrust levers, opening the speed brake, and if I'm flying on an airway, I will also turn off 45 degrees, and that's because this is a maneuver which is going to make the aircraft descend very quickly. And obviously, when we're doing that, if there's other aircraft 1,000 feet below us in the same airway, well, then they might not have time to get away from us. So we're turning as well. So what you will be feeling in the back as a passenger is all of this happening. You're hearing the word emergency, and then all of a sudden the aircraft starts turning and descending rapidly. Okay. Now, to the question if you can feel G-forces, no, you probably won't. This is still a controlled maneuver done by the autopilot. So you will definitely feel that the aircraft is pointing down the nose. You will hear the wind noise starting to increase, because we will increase the speed from whatever indicated speed we had to Mach 0.81 or 335 knots, something that's just below the red line speed. So it will be dramatic, okay? And of course, depending on what caused the emergency descent, if there was actually a door, something opening, some kind of hole opening in the cabin somewhere, a bomb or whatever caused the decompression, that in itself might cause a lot of noise and a lot of hissing and a lot of air moving, and of course you will feel your ears popping. Because if the pressure is completely gone, now the aircraft's cabin is going to change the pressure at the same rate as the aircraft is descending. Normally, when you're flying an aircraft, the aircraft cabin is at about 8,000 feet. The cabin of the aircraft is actually up at about 35 to 40,000 feet, and as we start descending, the aircraft will the cabin, the pressurization will descend at a much smaller rate. So while we might descend at 2,000, 3,000 feet per minute, the cabin will descend at maybe 500 feet per minute. So that's just to spare your ears. But in the case of depressurization, you won't have that luxury. You will just be following the aircraft down with whatever speed it has. So it's definitely going to pop your ears. You're going to have pain most likely. Now, having said that, this is all very scary potentially, but it's not in any case dangerous, because this is a maneuver that we train. The reason that it's feeling abrupt is because we need to get you down to breathable altitudes. We need to get you down to around 10,000 feet, where the outside pressure is enough to sustain life. Okay, at 40,000 feet, you might have 15-20 seconds of time of useful consciousness. So if you don't get your oxygen mask on, after 15 seconds, you are out. Okay, not dead, but you are unconscious. So that's why we're doing this maneuver very quickly, because we know that there might not be people who manage to get their oxygen mask on, stuff like that. So we try to get you down into an altitude where you can breathe as quickly as humanly possible. So yeah, to answer your question, yes, it will feel scary, but it's not as scary as it feels. Okay, so Reese Marjoram is asking, your airline might buy a Airbus 320. Will you train on it? Well, if I get my hands on Airbus 320, of course I will train on it. As in, I will first have to train myself, get the type rating on it, and then eventually, since I am a type rating examiner, I will probably very quickly become a type rating instructor and examiner on that type as well. Moving in between different types as an instructor, since you already have the instructor rating, is much quicker. So basically, once you have the type rating done, you could potentially become an instructor as well. So it's much quicker than you think. Robin Davidson. So Robin, your question didn't come through. I don't know really why that is, but go into the Mentour Aviation app and send me the question in there. Okay. And by the way, guys, I hope you checked out my Instagram yesterday and my Facebook, because I did one of those flag storms in the app, which I do from time to time just to kind of wake people up. That's basically that everyone writes the name of their country and puts their flag in and sends it into the app chat just to see what's happened. And if you go into my Instagram right now, or even better, you go into Facebook and see the whole video, you'll see what happened then, what I can see from the control panel, because I can see where the app is being used, and you can see how it's just popping up everywhere all over the world. You can see these apps popping up where people was putting in their countries and their flags. It's a fantastic sight. I was watching it together with my wife. She was so impressed, and it's a great thing to see. So if you haven't got the app already, then check it out. It's a very cool thing. So what books do you recommend, aviation related? Now, I am not a big reader of aviation books. I have to confess to that, okay? There are quite a few great books out there. Handling the Big Jets is an old classic that I always mention. That's because it is very good at explaining aerodynamics and just the general handling of the larger jet transport aircraft. So that's a classic that you should read. But there's loads and loads of good books out there. What I do recommend people to do, though, is if you're in the market of starting your PPL, for example, then try to get your hands on the PPL books already. Because even though they're not, they might be a little bit on the boring side, but it's not going to be for you because you're interested in it. I read them when I was 14. I managed to get my dad's whole PPL books, and I read through every single one of them because they give a great foundation of understanding. Even if you want to become a commercial pilot and stuff, even if you're about to start, the PPL books will give you the foundation you need in order to understand what the different subjects are and the basic knowledge that you need. So I always recommend people to do that. Raymond Doughton, thank you very much. So private or commercial pilot, what's better? Well, I have a playlist actually on the channel. If you go into the channel after this, you can see that I've made a video. It's quite a bit, it's old videos, so they're not as well done as the videos that I'm doing right now. But I've done a video series about the different pilot licenses, and private pilot license is great if you're just going to take your friends out, maybe go to fly-ins and stuff like that, but you don't want to work with it. In order for you to work with it, in order for you to gain any kind of money for flying, you have to get a commercial pilot license, a CPL, an MPL, and eventually an ATPL if you want to become a captain. So the question is a little bit so on, like, it's depending on what you want to do, really. If you don't want to become a professional pilot, if you don't want to fly with passengers and take money for it, well, then PPL is enough. And then you can study on your own pace, if you want to improve your skills and your knowledge and so on. But CPL is what you need in case you want to become a commercial pilot. Jordan Coles, at what age did you become fluent in English? Did living in the UK improve your English even further? Great question, actually. I was quite good at English when I left school. The fact is that people coming from the Scandinavian countries tend to speak quite good English, and the reason for that is they start the English studies very early. I mean, Swedish is a tiny little language, so even though it's very good, a very cool language, it's not as useful internationally as English is. So we know that, which means that we start studying it from a low age. But the single most important thing is that in Sweden we do not dub our videos, we do not dub our television programs or anything. So if you want to watch TV, if you want to watch any kind of TV series or whatever, you're going to watch them in original language, and which tends to be English, which means that we are subjected to English much, much more. All right, from an early stage. I'm comparing now from living in Spain, where they don't have that, where everything is dubbed, and of course, if you don't get subjected to the English language, well, then you will not master it as quickly either. So I would say that I was probably fairly good at English when I started my flight training, but when I started doing my type rating in Amsterdam, that's when I really needed it. So that's when it really started evolving, and then from living in the UK, of course, then you master it. Then you get all of the little sayings, all of the little fragrances of the language. So, I always recommend anyone who really wants to learn a language to go and live in a country where they speak the language. And don't only go there to live. Make sure that you live together with people who speaks the language, because it's easy for people to go with friends, to think that they can go to the UK with like a group of Spanish friends and learn anything. No, you're going to have to go there. You're going to have to submerge yourself in an English family or work for an English employer, something like that. That's the only way. And by the way, I have to say this as well. Something happened with my latest video. All right, when I uploaded my latest video about aircraft with parachutes, for some reason after midnight, YouTube switched it into the invisible mode. So loads of the initial video views, so that you guys would have, the notifications disappeared. And the sponsor of last week's video is Cambly. Okay, and as I've always said to you guys, the only companies that that I'm representing on the channel are companies that adds value to you. So when you're asking about English, Cambly, if you can't go to the UK, then what you need to speak to someone. You need to not only read books and stuff in English, you need to actually improve on your vocabulary and your communication skills. And Cambly does exactly that. They have both an app and a website. I'm going to add their links here to this video later on, or you can just go into my latest video and click on the links there to check it out, because there you can get a hold of someone that you can converse with, a trained teacher that can listen to the level of English that you have, the level of English that you should have. And there are even pilots and people who are preparing for people for pilot interviews in Cambly. Just search for pilot when you search for a tutor, and they will be able to subject you to the kind of English communication skills that you need. Right, so check out Cambly. It's a really, really cool company, actually. I'm quite happy that they wanted to be part of the channel. Right, so Mariano, if windshield gets dirty from inside, maybe a strong sneeze, do you clean it? Yeah, yes. We have papers, we have towels, like those cleaning towels. We tend to have as well, as set engineers tend to leave a set of these, they're like two parts, wet and dry wipes for instrument panels, because sometimes the screens get dirty. You can use that, but obviously you want to clean the windshield, especially if you were the one who was sneezed on it. Cool. Captain Mixie, how did you improve your math skills? Yeah, in my case, the improvement was just hard work. Right? I was terrible at math when I was young, as in when I was in grade school and stuff. I was terrible at it. I thought it was the hardest subject of them all. I was afraid of it. I did not want to do it. I am more of a language person. I do like natural sciences, but it wasn't my strong suit. But when I understood that I wanted to be a pilot, that was my ultimate goal. Well, then I knew that there was no way around it. So the only thing to do then is study hard. I was doing my training, and obviously this government-sponsored training that I've been talking about, the way that I got my licenses. And as I mentioned before, in order to get in there, we basically were selected on the highest possible grades in the country. And then on top of that, we did psychometric testing and things like that. All right. So that was what I needed to get in, and I worked my butt off to get the grades up in order to be have a chance to come to the tests. But then that meant as well that the people that I ended up with in my class, they were all semi-geniuses, as in these were guys that in some cases didn't even need to study before an exam. So I ended up living with two of those, and when because I still, even then, even when I managed to reach and get into the school, I still had to work hard in order to maintain a high level of mathematics skills. So I was I was sitting at home, practicing maths and stuff, and I could just hear them sitting outside playing PlayStation, and we had the same exam, right? But these guys, they just, the math just came to them. Just like my wife, she's exactly the same. She doesn't need, she just understands it. My kids, fortunately, has gotten that as well. It seems like, anyway, they're young still. But so that's what I did, and that's why also now we're talking sponsors. Brilliant.org, another one that I got into contact to, check them out, and realized that this is a website that actually have found a way to make it easier to understand mathematics and physics. So yet another of the companies that's sponsoring the channel that I highly do recommend. Nicholas Blackmore, if you had a time machine, what plane would you choose to fly for your career in their prime? The 747 or the Concorde? The Concorde. Yeah, there will only ever be one Concorde, right? So there's no question about that. The awe and the technology, how beautiful that aircraft is. There's no question. The 747 I could potentially fly still if I wanted. I could start applying for companies that flies the 747 still. It's gonna be around for many years to come. But the Concorde, that was something that I would have loved to be a part of. Technology Nerd 18. So I meet the Southwest pilot, and it told me I should just start training as soon as possible. What do you think I should do? Train now or wait until I'm older? I'm 14. I mean, start reading and start preparing yourself. You should do as soon as possible. I was 14 when I started. All right, I went out with my dad. I went out flying and stuff, but I didn't actually start training for my licenses until I could actually get them. Now this differs in different parts of the world, but generally speaking, you won't get an airline job before you're 18 or 19 years old. So there's no hurry in starting to do getting your licenses and then just having to maintain them up until you get the legal age to actually apply for an airline. So don't worry. By all means, start studying. Get your hands on the theoretical stuff, because that will never get old. Just start reading it up. And this is actually something for you guys who have the Mentour Aviation app. Something I'm working on at the moment. There will be stuff coming. All right. There's in many different areas. There's going to be video courses and stuff that I'm thinking about. I'm not going to reveal exactly what it is yet. But I have some big ideas of stuff that I want to provide to you that doesn't exist at the moment. All right. Those of you who've ever done a CBT course knows how boring that is. There needs to be a supplement to that, and that might be what's on the way. Okay. Anyway, so I flew a couple of weeks back. I flew with one of the strongest cadets that I've flown with in my career. Very well put together pilot, and he was only 19 years old, right? So his line check now, 19 years old. He's gonna have he's what, 20, so he has 45 years ahead of him in the business, which is incredible, but it is perfectly doable. So he's now 19 years old flying the 737. It is possible even for you. Vladimir Ushchinov Tumala. right? I see that you have tried to put a question in that didn't work. So go into the app, go into the settings of the app. There's a submit feedback function there. Just write, that will send me an automatic email and I will answer it if the subject line is super chat, okay? Cool. So Davenport established limited. If you notice your first officer skills are not up to scratch, could you as a training captain send him or her back to the sim? No. Yes and no. It depends a little bit of where it is. So if we're talking about if it's during training, as in during line training, then it's my authority as a trainer to give the feedback needed. I'm obviously going to do whatever I can to support this pilot to reach the standard needed. But if they don't reach the standard needed, as in if I can't recommend them for line check after a certain amount of sectors, well then it's going to be up to first in my company the base TRE, which is me, to write a recommendation on how to proceed with the training, to try to give as many chances as possible to this student. And then at the end of the line, there's going to be the chief instructor sim, which is my boss, that is then going to decide whether or not this person needs to be taken back into the sim for further training, or if the training gets terminated, which can happen as well, but very rarely. But the point I want to get to here, guys, is that we work with what we have. So if that person has gotten, is obviously taken, or her has gotten through the type rating, and now we just need to get them as good as possible and get them ready for their job. In that case, we will normally spend quite a few sectors on it, and we will try to find out why is there a problem, what can we do, does it help to fly with certain types of instructors, things like that. So we will do whatever we have in our arsenal to try to help you guys when you get into that level. Okay. Ben Donson. Hello, why is English the main language of the sky? They've just decided on that. All right. It's probably because commercial aviation and things came from from the US basically, where they speak English, and then the traditions, all of it has come. It's been English has been the main language of aviation since it started, and it's just kept that way. Right. It's impossible to say if something had gone differently during the Second World War, for example. It could have gone another way. But English has been decided by ICAO that this is going to be, we need one, since this is a global industry and everyone touches each other's countries and stuff, we need to speak the same language. Let's choose one. And since English was the one that already existed, that was already kind of established as the language of aviation, well, that's what they stuck with. So that's unlikely to ever change. Kalidor, what happens if the plane goes over speed? How can it happen and how do you resolve it? Yeah, it could go over speed if you're very, very, if you're sitting up in very high up at the maximum altitude that the aircraft can fly, called the coffin corner, where it's very, very close to the overspeed and very close to the underspeed. And if you get into turbulence, then, for example, you could potentially get into overspeed. Now, one of the many problems with overspeed is that the aerodynamics changes. All right, so when you start to go into the overspeed of the aircraft, you will have certain part of the aircraft that shouldn't be transonic or supersonic going supersonic. And if the wings start doing that, the pressure on the wings, as in to explain that in a good way, the wings on a subsonic airliner is built for a certain type of flow over it. Okay, if you start to have supersonic flow over the wing, the points where the pressure is subjected on the wing is going to change. It's going to move, and in some cases that causes something called a tuck under effect, where the aircraft, when it goes into overspeed, actually pitches down. And of course, if it pitches down, then it might go into further overspeed. Right? You will feel this as a nasty vibration. It'll sound like the aircraft is kind of singing to you, and it'll move like that through I've never heard it, fortunately. I've had it told to me by people who have experienced it, that it's a very, very scary sound, because it feels like the whole aircraft is resonating. And of course, if you go too far into overspeed, then the airframe will be subjected to so much pressure that it might start to craquelate and fail. And that's why it's so dangerous. What to do about it? Well, you have to do whatever you can, but you have to be very careful when you're doing it. In overspeed, all of the flight control surfaces, some cases they might actually revert their effectiveness. So if you should turn right, it suddenly turns left. In some cases, they become too effective. The speed brake, for example, might cause an unwanted Mach effect. If you pull it out too quickly, it actually accelerates the air going over it, and if it's already in the transonic flow, it might go into supersonic flow and cause a pressure bump, basically. So you have to be very careful, carefully try to, of course, reduce the thrust, partially, slowly extend speed brake, possibly climb to try to get the speed off. Do not let it go into a turn, because then you'll have further accelerations that you don't want to. You want to, if the aircraft is about to follow the flight plan to turn, you might want to just go straight ahead. But this is scary, right? You don't want to put yourself in that situation. This is why we do whatever we can to avoid that. And there's also quite a bit of margins built into our overspeed warnings and underspeed warnings. So even when we do get into clacker, you're still not in an overspeed condition. It's just a warned overspeed condition, so you have possibilities to get out of it. So, Kea G68, would we ever see commercial supersonic flights again? Yeah, I think we will. In one way or another, we will see supersonic flights commercially again. When it happens, how it happens, it's hard to say. But if I'm going to guess, it's going to be within the next 10 years. So, let's see. Theacrus. Hi Mentor, I saw a video of a 737 landing in heavy crosswinds. It replaced reverse thrust before it touches the ground. Is this a normal procedure? No. I know which video you're referring to. I've seen it as well. And I've actually talked about it before on one of my live streams. We are never supposed to engage reverse thrust in flight, ever. Okay. However, there is the system allows you to select reverse thrust at 5 feet radio altimeter under certain circumstances. Okay. Why that has been built like that, I don't know. But that is probably to enable the pilot in case of an emergency to get the aircraft down. But we should never do it, and it's not normal procedure. What can happen though is that a pilot coming in under very, very hard crosswinds and very tricky conditions would be very focused on doing things in the right order. And the right order is A, get the aircraft onto the center line, decrabbing, putting the aircraft down, and as soon as you get the aircraft down, the main wheel touches down, you select reverses. Alright? That's to get the aircraft now, slowing down and get out of this very windy condition. And the pilot flying is going to be very concentrated on this. And of course, if you're in then very close to the ground and the next thing you're thinking about is I'm going to take reverses, and then you just happen to, the motoric memory kicks in and you take it a bit early. That's most likely what happened in that case, right? It's not normal procedure, it shouldn't happen, but it is perfectly understandable why it happened. Alright? So, Gianluca Ruggeri, you are the number one. What's your favorite? Well, thank you. We actually refer to the purser, the cabin crew chief, as the number one. But thank you. My favorite airport. That's a hard one. But I love Girona, the airport where I'm based, because I know it so well. I love flying into Malta, that I've said before as well, because it's a nice long runway with good ILSs and good weather, and it's beautiful there as well. Other ones that I like flying into, Gatwick was kind of cool to fly into actually, but not. I mean, there's no one that stands out above others that much anyway. So, Airbus 350 or 787, what would be your choice and why? That's actually a repeat question from last week's live stream. So I would love to try both of them. I think they're both fantastic new technology aircraft, which I would love to get my hands on. Obviously, since I'm used to fly the 737, the 787 is, is going to be a lesser step. We pilots are always eager to do as little as possible if we can avoid it. So the 787 will probably be my choice because I understand the Boeing philosophy and it will be a smaller step for me to take. but the Airbus 350, I saw it in, where did I saw it last time? Manchester, I think, just a few weeks back. It's a beautiful aircraft. Beautiful aircraft. So, Jap Elst, how many YouTube pilots do you know? That depends on how you refer to know. All right, I've been in contact with Captain Joe, with Dutch Pilot Girl as well. Flight shops I've been in contact with. Pilot Maria I know a little bit better. The Pilot Malin, I've just had some mail conversation with. Who else? Yeah, I mean, I think those would probably be the ones that I've actually had in contact with. Out of those people that I've actually met face to face is Pilot Maria. But yeah, I mean, these are. It's interesting because we're doing the same kind of things. Especially me and Captain Joe have very similar channels. We explain things at a certain different style, both of us, but it's very, very close to, and sometimes we actually bump into each other with the same subject, which I'm sure you've already noticed, which is why it's a good idea to kind of hold the communication line open a little bit. So, Doug Pauly. Hey, Doug. Great to see you. Hi, Mentor. Have you had much problems with laser pointers and drones? Drones I haven't had any problems with yet. All right, I'm sure that will come. Laser pointers almost every year. You report them. Sometimes the police takes them, sometimes not. I did a video on that actually, where I managed to identify where the person was standing, pointing the laser, and the police could come and grab them, and that would be a very, very high fine for that person. So yeah, laser pointer happens almost every year. However, I should say that last year it's become much better, and I think that's because the general public starts to understand that what they're doing is actually a very, very serious criminal offense. And so the ones that used to do it just like kids who will be out pointing, they're not doing it anymore because their parents realize that that's not a great way of spending their family money. So I think that it's getting better as the public understands that you don't want to go out playing by blinding pilots landing aircraft. I hope that's the case anyway. And finally, Remy, thank you very much. So what I'll do now is I will take some questions from the Mentour Aviation chat, which you can see here. It's quite a few questions coming up. How do you deal with light failures from Jerry Berry? For the easy failures, small failures, we deal with them always in the same way, which is the pilot flying flies the aircraft. The pilot flying asks to state the malfunction to the pilot monitoring. The pilot monitoring then diagnoses the failure, says what it is, if it's a single failure, double failure, whatever it might be, and then the pilot flying asks for whatever checklist that he or she thinks is appropriate. So that might be, all right, so can I have the pack light checklist, please? The pilot monitoring then takes up the 737 QRH, picks up whatever the checklist might be. So we said pack light. So let's have a look at pack light. Chapter 2. Pack light. 218. Pack light. And then the pilot monitoring start reading and doing the checklist. So even for smaller malfunctions, you go through the same kind of failure management technique as you would with a bigger failure. It's just that it goes quicker and it probably doesn't raise the alertness as much as a major failure would. But the idea is the same. Right, more question. Pilot Soran. Hello, Mentor. How was your first flight ever when you were 14? I am 14. I want to do a test flight with an instructor, but I don't know how. That was fantastic, right? I did quite a few flights with my dad before, should be said, but the test flight that I got from my parents for my 14th birthday was an absolutely magical experience. And the way to do that is that you can go out to whatever flight club there is around or flight school, and you can say that this is what I want to do. I want to do a test lesson. Okay, it's going to cost you, I don't know how much your parents might want to give it to you as a present or whatever, or you might want to use some of the money that you have worked for during the summer to get that. But anyway, it's going to be you and the instructor. You don't need to prepare anything before. The instructor is just going to show you that this is what we're going to do. take off, we're going to do some turns, we're going to do some steep turns, we're going to climb, descend, just show you basically what it's all about, and then you'll probably get to do that as well, to feel the aircraft, and then you'll return. So that's the easiest way. Just go out to the closest flight school or club and ask for it, right? And say hello from me. Cool, let's see. So there's no more questions on the super chat at the moment. I hope I haven't missed any. Tell me if I have. What was your worst experience as a pilot in the sky? I can't single out any single day that's been the worst, but the problem with being a pilot, I've noticed, is that when things start to go bad, they tend to come in a group. So I've had, for example, days where I've had a medical emergency combined with a bird strike that has damaged the leading edges, combined with a very long delay and then slot times on top of that. So when things start to go bad, they tend to continue. Okay, and that's not me being superstitious. That's just me counting the days, and I think that's probably because you start to notice things when you start to have a few things happening to you. So it's probably a psychological thing, to be honest. But it's not like I can say that, oh, I had this one day where everything went wrong. No, it equals out over a week normally. Maurizio Mariano, how do you like your eggs? Scrambled, hard boiled? Yeah, that's a great question actually. That depends on what I'm going to eat. I tend to eat them hard boiled. No, not hard boiled, but medium boiled. Right, so a little bit soft in the middle is what I like them. And then if I'm in England, I tend to have scrambled eggs as well together with some bacon, which is nice. Just a little bit left field question to be on this channel, but I like it. I like thinking outside of the box. Jackie Ridley, great channel. Well, thank you. Great to see you here. And all of you guys who are here, I really appreciate the fact that you're here, that you're interacting, that you're inside of the Mentour Aviation app, and that you're, making this channel into what it is, which is, I am just trying to spread whatever little knowledge that I have to you guys. I'm hoping that I can inspire some of you guys to go for your dreams. And if you guys like what I'm doing, well, then I'm happy. T. René, man, thank you for your very generous support, René. Hi again. I asked you a question in the app the other day about plane losing an engine. I would really appreciate a pilot's in-depth take on this kind of situation. The passengers were never informed. Could the sideways drop be a controlled descent? All right. So, René, first of all, when it comes to losing an engine, all right, I've done quite a few videos, both an information video here in the channel where I explain exactly what we do, the theory behind it, and then I have done some instructional videos inside of the Mentour Aviation app where you can see me together with another captain dealing with an engine failure on takeoff until we get back onto the ground. Everything we do, all of the checklists we do and how we do it. So that's all there. The sideways drop that you're talking about is likely what you feel when one engine, depending on when this happens, should be said. You will notice less if this happens during cruise than during takeoff, because during takeoff you will have maximum thrust, and of course if you lose thrust on one engine, the other one will still pull, and you'll feel the aircraft yawing to one side before the captain or the pilot flying has enough time to rectify it and keep it straight. The fact that passengers were never informed is not good. All right. What we tend to do is obviously once we've had the failure, the first thing we do is that the pilot flying flies the aircraft, keeps the aircraft safe away from the ground and the flying condition, and then we will start to figure out what's wrong by the technique that I just mentioned. State the malfunction. This seems to be the malfunction. Okay, I want this checklist. So we start doing the checklist to secure the engine to make sure that it doesn't catch fire or something worse happens, to stop oil and fuel from entering into a potentially damaged engine. So that's all done, right? But this is done without talking to the passengers, because talking to passengers is something we do when we have everything completely under control. So first of all, we're flying the aircraft, we're dealing with the problem, all right? Once we have that under control and we started to make a plan. So once we have everything under control, we start talking to each other like this. And how do you perceive this situation? Well, I think that this and this has happened. Right. what kind of airports do we have close by? Do we have maintenance in one of them? How's the weather looking? Things like that. So we gather all the information. So we have problem, information, options, right? What do we do? Do we divert? Do we continue? Do we land there? So options. Then we select one option. We execute that option, which might be diverting or returning back to the aircraft of port of departure, and then continuously evaluating. This is called the PIOC model. So problem, information, options, select, execute, evaluate. But there, once we've decided that yes, we will be returning because that's the safe course of action, that's when we will start by informing the cabin crew. If they haven't already called us, which we might have talked to them already, but we will give them a briefing on what's going to happen, and once they know what's going to happen, then all my crew is aware. Then I will make a PA to the passengers and will tell them, listen, we have this exact problem. I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty of it. I'm not going to be very technical because that's just going to scare people. But I'm going to say that we have a technical issue with the engine on the right-hand side. We have that all secured now, but for the safety of the flight and for everyone on board, and also to be able to fix the problem, we need to get back down on the ground where we're coming from to have our engineers to look at the problem. And we're also going to give you more information about your ongoing troubles and the delay that this will have later on. So I will give information, but also showing them that I'm thinking ahead and that I'm not panicking, because it's really important to give this briefing in a calm, collected way, right? So the fact that the passengers on the incident that you're talking about never got any information is very bad, because people will see and feel that something is wrong, so they will obviously start to question. If they don't hear anything, then they will always assume the worst, mainly that A, the captain doesn't know about it, B, he doesn't care about it, and he's not doing anything about it. Right? That can never happen. So this all has to be coordinated, but the first thing to do is always going to be to deal with the problem, and then inform. Aviate, navigate, communicate. Right? Remember that. Right, So Jap Elst, your subscriber count without looking, you can be 1,000 off. That's possible. I've seen that YouTube is fluctuating a little bit when it comes to subscriber counts lately. I don't know what that is. I don't know if YouTube is having any problems and stuff like that. But one day I'm checking it 290, and then it's 289, and then 291. I don't know what's going on. But to be honest, as long as you guys are happy, I don't really mind that much. I will, of course, celebrate in some way when I pass 300,000, which is a fantastic number. I still can't believe that there's 300,000 people out there who have clicked the subscribe button on my channel. It's amazing. Right, from PT, hypothetically speaking, pilot or surgeon, that's going to have to be up to you. Right, they're two completely different options. It's going to be easier to go to study to become pilot, to get your licenses. It's also probably going to be pretty much as expensive. I don't know how much it costs to go to medical school nowadays, but it's probably in the same region of cost. But it's going to be you're going to have to feel in your heart what you want to do. Surgeon is a fantastic job. It's a very, very serious and a job with a lot of pressure on you, just like being a pilot would be. Have a huge amount of responsibility. So I would just say, if you want, direct it in whatever way that you feel is right for you and what's going to keep you satisfied over a longer period of time. That's what I will go. If you think that you're going to be bored with flying a plane for a whole career, well, then go with surgeon. And there's nothing stopping you, by the way, to do both of them. I have a friend of my dad's who is both a dental surgeon and a commercial pilot. Right? He did the dental surgeon part first, and then he became a commercial pilot. Kept them both up. Right? So anything is possible in this life. You have time, especially if you're young, to do two different careers. Although I do know that it does cost a bit of money and time to get there. So Lloyd, call no one. Thanks again for your support. And Medcare Engine I love your videos. I figured out which airline you work for. You should make a video on St. Elmo's fire on one of your one in which you are training in the sim. Yeah, sim training is going to come up. It's probably going to come up inside of the Mentour Aviation app, and I will have a few videos coming out on the channel, because to be honest, what I've noticed is that the people inside of the app, they are real enthusiasts. They want me to do a lot of technical videos and explain systems and things like that, while a large portion of people who are watching my YouTube channel, they just want me to give general explanations about the aviation world and why things look like they do and how we think about things and stuff like that. So the sim video, I think if I put it out on YouTube only, it probably will only be viewed by a small fraction of everyone on YouTube, because it's going to be very complex. Not too complex. I mean, if you've seen the videos that I have inside of my app now, you know I do whatever I can to to make it as easy and understandable as possible. By the way, T Renee, if you want to have even more explanation to that question you just asked, then send me an email, right? And I will, because you were made such a generous donation that I feel like I want to make sure that you're happy with the answer, right? So just contact me afterwards. Hi Mentor, can I first officer call a go around, and what happens if the captain feels that it was unnecessary? Not only can a first officer call a go around, they should, whenever they feel like there is that the approach is not stabilized, that they're unhappy about something, they should, then must call for it. And we actually in my airline have built in a mechanism, which is a 500 feet land or go around call, right? That the pilot monitoring makes, even if the pilot monitoring is the first officer, okay? And that gives them the authority to take the decision. At 500 feet, if they're not happy, they will call 500 feet, go around. The pilot flying does not have the right to question that. They will do a go around and then ask a question, all right? The way that this works is that we're both professionals, okay? We're both trained, and if a first officer will call me to do a go around, I know that that first officer has seen something that worried them so much that they didn't feel that they were safe, that they didn't feel that the approach was safe, which means that the appropriate thing to do is to go around, explain it, and then come back in again. So there's no hard feelings. In fact, in most cases where a first officer calls a go around, the captain is very, very grateful afterwards, because it's one of those where I might have been so concentrating, I've been in my landitis, or get-there-itis as we call it, where you just see, I'm going to get this aircraft down no matter what happens here, and you lose the objective oversight of the situation, which is, man, this is not worth it, we just throw it away. And the first officer comes in and said, listen, 500 feet, go around, not stabilized. You go around, and afterwards you realize that, yeah, that's a good call. You know, that approach would not have been, it wouldn't have led up to a good landing. So in most cases, the captain is perfectly happy with it. And if it's not, it doesn't matter. We in, do another approach, we land, that's it. Okay, that's how professional aircrew should deal with things like that. Bikey4, do you think if Hyperloop actually happens, how much harm to regional airline business will happen? Nothing. I mean, unless we're talking Hyperloop on a ginormous scale, where you have Hyperloops all over the world, between cities, under seas, everywhere, the Hyperloop is not going to make a dent in, except for maybe some specific city pairs. So let's say there's a Hyperloop between Gothenburg and Stockholm in Sweden. Then obviously there's going to be less need for regional flights flying on those particular routes. But there's not going to be a Hyperloop from Stockholm to Växjö in Sweden, or Stockholm to Sundsvall, or Umeå, or Östersund, or Malmö, or whatever. So it will reshape the structure of the regional airlines, certainly. It might harm specific routes, definitely, if it comes to fruition. But we're talking something that is so massively expensive that it's unlikely to be even on the map for the next 40 years or so, except in very specific city pairs, like mentioned. Cool, let's take some questions from the normal chat as well. I'm not going to completely disregard you guys. Do most pilots have 40-hour work weeks like any other job? Yeah, they probably have less, to be perfectly honest. What you have to remember is that a pilot can only fly 900 hours over a year. Okay, so if you count that out, if you spread that out over a year and count on maybe a month and a half of vacation as well, so say 10 months, you need to 900 hours. It's about 100 hours, a little bit less, maybe 80 hours a month. Okay, that needs to be flown. So you can count yourself. Now on top of that comes a little bit more work, which is not counted as flight time. All right, so working in the office a little bit, preparing for the flights, post duty flights and stuff as well. So there's a little bit more to it, but yeah, slightly less than 40 hours working weeks can be expected. How often do you fly with the same first officer? Well, in my base, since I'm a trainer, I don't do it very often because I tend to fly with new trainees, new cadets. But the other ones, since I'm flying in a small base with only 5 aircraft, well, that means that the first officers and the captains, sorry, I'm losing my voice now, we're on the same roster pattern. They will fly with themselves with each other quite often. So if I would be flying in a very big base, well, then I might not fly with the same first officer for years. So it's highly dependent on what kind of airline you're working for, what kind of roster pattern you're working on, and what base you're working in. Okay. Okay. Hello. Measures can be taken to lose the fear of flight as a pilot after having an air accident. Absolutely. I mean, if you've had an accident of some sort and that has led to some problems, psychological problems, then you need to go and see a psychologist. Normally you have a lot of support from the airline behind. If something traumatic has happened, say someone has died on board or whatever, then there's a crisis team that's going to take care of the crew to make sure that nothing like that happens. So yes, there's loads of steps that you can take. Okay guys, I am running out of voice and I'm running out of time, so let's see if there's any last super chat questions. I see Paul Hansen has come in twice here. Thank you very much, Paul. I guess you had a question, but it didn't come through. So go into the Mentour Aviation app and ask me the question through there. Guys, thank you very much. I will round this off here, see if there's any last question I can take from the Mentour Aviation app here. Mentor, is there SOPs for complete hydraulic failures? And if so, what are they? They're not SOPs for hydraulic failure, okay? Because we can't have SOPs built for everything, but there are checklists for how to deal with it, and there are SOPs for how to deal with problems. So yeah, complete hydraulic failure on a 737 is hard work, but it's perfectly flyable, and I will do a video on that coming up in a while, all right? It's called manual reversion. Which means that you're basically flying the plane with muscles, but it's still doable. All right, it's just like driving a very, very, very big car without any kind of servo. That is it. Mentor, should I look out for a cadet program? Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, if you see here, there, mentorpilot.com. All right, I've already started and I've already issued the first recommendations for a flight school that I have checked out and that I know is providing quality training. Right? It's you can go into, I'm not going to say what it is, but you can go into the website and you can check it out. So one, there's going to be more. If you have a flight school out there and you want to be evaluated and possibly have a cooperation with mentorpilot.com, then go and check that out. Okay, contact me and we'll see what we can do about it. But there is one cadet program that you can search for. So, Chuck Flagg, this will be the last question. When I earned my my single engine in the US, now PPL, the standard pax weight was 170. In 2003 it became 180, summer 185, winter. Do you think that the weight is too low now? This is being, for what we're talking about here is something called standard weights, okay? So we assume that every passenger weigh a certain amount, which tends to be around 85 to 90 kilos for male, slightly less for female, and that also includes the hand luggage, okay? So this is being continuously evaluated, as you've already seen. If there is a statistical show in the population that the weight is increasing, well, then the standard weights will increase as well. I don't think that they're increasing actually. sorry, I don't think that they're too low now. I think they're increasing, but I don't think they're too low. And I'm sure that when that happens, then the authorities will do something about it. So I'm fairly confident when it comes to that. So, last question. Please don't send any more super questions, guys, because I am losing my voice. Have you ever been in Brazil? I live in Brasilia, the capital, and the city is shaped as an airplane. Just a funny fact. Cool. No, I haven't been in Brazil. South America is on my to-do list. It'll come up soon, hopefully. Guys, thank you very much for being here tonight. There will be another live stream next Sunday. Well, maybe. Actually, next week I'm going to go on vacation with my family, so I'm not sure there's going to be a live stream then. Those of you who have the app will know it because I'm sending out a push through the app when it happens. Otherwise, just keep your eyes and ears open, and I'm sure that we can do something. There will be a release of a new video on Friday, and I need all your support, guys. As soon as the video comes up, please go in, check it as long as possible, because YouTube will then help me promote the videos to more people so that more people can be involved. And the more, guys, the more you spend time on it, the more you click the ads or wherever, the better it is. All right. Like, honestly, the more you tell people about the channel, the more you help the channel, right? So I just want to say that as the last thing I do. I want to thank you all for supporting, and I hope that you will enjoy the coming video. Take care of yourselves, and remember, I'm going to add the discounts for Cambly. If you guys want to improve on your English skills and stuff, I'm going to add those links to this video right now. So take care of yourself, guys, and stay awesome. Bye-bye.